Ladies and gentlemen, Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson campaigned on the message that Seattle was too expensive, homelessness was out of control, and big businesses had too much influence, and City Hall needed to tax the wealthy residents and corporations to fund housing, transit, and more government programs. Basically, use the Mom Donnie playbook, just in Seattle. And now one of her wishes is starting to come true because the very businesses she spent her campaign targeting are now looking at Seattle and saying, you know what? It's time to pack our bags. This is what happens when your far left ideology just wants to blame businesses, blame wealth, blame taxpayers. So now Seattle has a mayor who campaigned against the people funding the city, and now those very same people are headed toward the exit. As always, if you enjoy the content, smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to let me know to stay locked in on future videos. Subscribe to the channel. And so I've been keeping you updated on what's happening in Seattle because this story keeps getting worse. Starbucks, one of the most well-known companies tied to Seattle, is now moving their HQ to Tennessee because Seattle has created the kind of business environment where success gets punished. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it has not stopped there. A recent survey found that nearly 25% of businesses are actively considering leaving. Let that sink in. First, let's start with Katie Wilson, the mayor of Seattle, mocking businesses who could potentially leave, and then go into that report. Take a listen.
Claims that millionaires are going to leave our state are like super overblown, and if the ones that leave, like bye.
We start with a troubling report for Washington's economy and job market. Nearly a quarter of businesses are now considering leaving the state. That's according to a report from the Association of Washington Business. It found the state's employers are growing more pessimistic about the direction of the economy and looking to exit the state because of the rising tax burden. Over 400 employers were surveyed, and 24% said they're looking to move their business. That's up from 17% in the previous quarter. 55% of employers said they're considering moving their personal residence to another state. That's up from 44% the previous quarter. The AWB points to the nearly $10 billion in new taxes passed in 2025, followed up by this year's so-called millionaire's tax. While the numbers are concerning, not all experts are sounding the alarm just yet.
And so now basically 1 in 4 businesses are considering leaving, according to the Association of Washington Business survey, where they said 24% of those employers said they are looking into relocating out of Washington state. And they said that's up from 17% just 1 quarter earlier. And it nearly tripled where that number was in the winter of 2025. So this isn't some slow moving theoretical problem anymore. This is getting real bad in real time. Businesses usually do not just wake up one day and decide to leave, especially if they've been there for years. But when they see taxes going up, regulations getting worse, crime, homelessness, poor leadership throughout the city where politicians treat job creators like the villains, at some point they feel like, you know what? Never mind, it's time for us to hit the road. You can't go around campaigning on attacking big businesses, attacking wealthy residents, promising to squeeze more from people who fund the city, and then act shocked when those same people start looking for the exit. And that includes the former Starbucks CEO who used to own the Seattle Supersonics, Howard Schultz, going scorched earth basically on his way out of Seattle on Katie Wilson. Take a listen.
Seattleites have great civic pride, but are concerned with the direction of the city, according to a new poll from the city's Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. This as one of the big-name residents is leaving town and going scorched earth on his way out. KOMO senior reporter Chris Daniels explains.
Outside the once bustling Starbucks roastery on Capitol Hill, there are more birds than baristas. Now the company's former CEO, Howard Schultz, yes, the guy who once called the Seattle Sonics a public trust before selling them off to out-of-town buyers, is bolting town too, writing in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, Seattle has turned hostile to business, writing Mayor Katie Wilson has chosen to cast business as a foil rather than a partner, and her socialist rhetoric vilifies employers even while she continues to rely on them for revenue. Also referencing the company's recent announcement it will shift hundreds of corporate roles to Tennessee.
I really, empathize.
But Joe Wynn, the Seattle Metro Chamber's CEO, said his organization's most recent index showed a decline in voter outlook on quality of life, homelessness, and crime, but strengths in civic pride.
I candidly am very optimistic because I do think that this is a conversation that Seattle should have and needs to have.
Wilson also took the high road, saying she wants Starbucks to continue succeeding with shared priorities of addressing homelessness, public safety, and affordability, and that there is plenty of room for all of us to find common ground.
I think there's some valid points from Mr. Schultz.
Seattle Councilmember Rob Saka struck a different note.
I think policymakers in Seattle and elsewhere should avoid diminishing and trivializing the perspectives of others, including those in the business community.
The conversation will continue to percolate if another big employer flies away.
And so now Katie Wilson is learning the hard way. Same way Zoran Mamdani learned when he stood outside of Ken Griffin's house making videos about taxing the rich. The left loves to talk tough when they are campaigning. Tax the rich, go after corporations. Big business has too much power. We don't need them, right? If they leave, bye. But then the moment those same businesses, wealthy residents, job creators start saying, okay, you know what? Maybe we should pull back. Maybe we should look into some better, more friendlier business environment. Suddenly the tone changes. And the fascinating part about this is Katie Wilson does not even want to answer basic questions when it comes to the media. So take a listen to this.
Seattle's mayor is declining further comment about a series of viral moments that have overshadowed any sort of policy discussion and raised new concerns about her leadership. The incidents have garnered national headlines from coast to coast and sparked questions about who is running the city. KOMO senior reporter Chris Daniels is live from Seattle to explain tonight. Chris.
Yeah, Molly, Seattle's mayor was at an event last week that was interrupted by gunfire, and Katie Wilson was rushed to safety. We did attempt to ask her a rather straightforward question about public policy when it comes to surveillance cameras, but we were interrupted by her staff. It was the third in a series of events that leads some to wonder whether these verbal missteps will have other impacts for the city. Does that change it? Does that change your perspective
let's
at
keep
all?
it on
Let's keep
the
it on.
topic of...
Yeah, let's keep it on the topic.
That straightforward public policy question of Seattle's Mayor Katie Wilson
I'm sorry, I specifically said to keep it on topic today.
is interrupted by a junior city staffer.
Want to have answers?
Maybe we can set up a different time for that.
But the mayor's a busy person.
I understand. Maybe we can set up with Sage sometime.
We'll talk to Sage.
Sage Wilson is the mayor's press secretary and declined to talk further about the effort by the low-level Seattle Public Utilities liaison to derail the conversation.
That's just not great press management.
Sandeep Kaushik is a longtime Seattle political and campaign consultant.
And it's kind of a rookie mistake.
He says the incident followed two others in recent weeks when she refused to discuss Starbucks' corporate expansion to Nashville.
But this is a chance for us to ask you.
So think about what you're watching. She's mocking big businesses. Can't answer questions from the media without being prepped first. Because they must be worried that she'll say something that proves she doesn't know what she's actually talking about. And so what do? She has the plan, everything ahead to try and not sound completely incompetent. I mean, the logical outcome would be, business is eventually leaving. And the president of the Association of Washington Business did not call this just a mild concern. He called it a 911 emergency for the state's economy. Take a listen.
Chris Johnson is the president of the Association of Washington Business and says a spring survey of members suggests more are now looking to relocate out of state, with 91% putting a pause on expansion because of state policy.
You know, I was going to say this. This should be a 5-alarm fire on the Washington's health of our economy. And we need an equal commitment to reversing that course.
All right, Chris, thanks for doing this. I guess let's just get right to it. You did a survey of members here, AWB members. What did it tell you?
Yeah, this is our quarterly statewide survey of employers throughout Washington state. And what we've seen is what we actually feared. A collapse in business confidence has continued in our state. And what we're seeing now is employers are actively considering moving and relocating from Washington state. So I would say what the data here shows us, this should be considered a medical emergency for Washington's economy.
Why? Why has it got to that point?
Well, you have now 1 in 4 employers are actively considering moving. That's up 7 percentage points in the last quarter. 55% of employers are considering moving their personal residence. That's up 9 percentage points since the last quarter. And 72% now cite Washington's tax burden as the top challenge to doing business in Washington state.
Now, either the mayor, Katie Wilson, and no one on her staff cares anything about these numbers. And so they just ignore them, ignore the information, or didn't even bother to read and look into this, which is just as bad, which is probably why she felt so confident brushing off businesses leaving, as if cities just can prosper without the revenue source that come from businesses that help fund cities like Seattle.
So how much has this changed since the last legislative session?
Well, no doubt after the last legislative session where we saw the income tax pass, the interest of moving out of Washington has become real. And what's really interesting is to see, how real is this? Well, 59% of individuals are actively looking at real estate in other states. 45% are visiting those locations. 23% are consulting with legal counsel on making those decisions. And 7% have already purchased real estate in other states.
That's a huge number that they should be highly concerned about, because you're talking about 7% of the businesses have already purchased real estate in other states. You're talking about it going beyond just talk and complaining and blowing off steam and threats, empty threats. Now you're actually talking about, making actual steps, taking actual action. Now, the other numbers are bad too. You have large percentage of the businesses actively looking at other states, visiting other states, comparing properties, comparing tax burdens, comparing regulations. I mean, hey, that's what Starbucks did when it came to Tennessee. And so at some point, they're going to say the same thing, these other businesses. Why are we here? That 7% number is one that really matters, because once a business has already bought real estate somewhere else, they're not just thinking about leaving. I mean, like I said, look at Starbucks. And while, they're saying, hey, we're going to have 2 headquarters, one here in Tennessee, one in Seattle, they're just going to slowly wind down and work their way out of the state of Washington, out of Seattle, and to the point where all of their businesses in Tennessee, and quietly announce that, hey, we're no longer going to be operating over there because it's just not working for us. And once that tax revenue is gone, it's gone forever. But this is the problem with these liberal policies. They do not believe in consequences until the consequences are standing right there in front of them.
Concerningly, now 17% of respondents say they're actively being recruited by economic development organizations in other states to move to those states. So again, we're seeing other states now say, we want you to come to our state and move your business and move your residents. And then any optimism in the economy about expanding has dropped. Now only 9% of respondents say they plan to expand in Washington's economy. So it is real. The movement of people, both individuals and their businesses, is real. It's happening. It's happening every day right now. It's gone beyond anecdotal.
Well, it's always been real. Let's be serious. But when you need to create a villain to blame, and in these blue states, they cannot blame Republicans. They can't. They have to create something, and that something they have chosen is the rich, the big bad businesses that actually benefit these cities, which it doesn't make logical sense to, make them the villain. But this is not about, using logic for the left. It's about what's emotional, what will make people believe that they need politicians like Katie Wilson to fix issues that she is clearly clueless on actually solving. But let's continue.
So when a mayor of the biggest city in the state makes a glib comment a couple of weeks ago that just got attention last week, saying bye to millionaires, how does that play in the AWB?
I think it's concerning anytime we have elected officials wanting to say goodbye to the job base, goodbye to the tax base of their economy. I think we should be saying, thank you. You're wanted here. You create great jobs. You create pathways for young people. You make investments in your local community. You're part of the fabric of your local regions that you call home. You sponsor Little League teams. You are so ingrained in local communities. And so I say on behalf of the employer community of our state, thank you. You're wanted. We want every company that can be here to be in Washington state. And I hope our policymakers at all levels, state, local, and federal, join us in that movement of saying, thank you, please stay here, and what can we do to help?
And so I'll leave it here. The reason why a Katie Wilson can't be a normal, good mayor and say, hey, you know, we welcome business, we want investment. We don't want to say bye to businesses and millionaires. We want job creators. Is because that will betray her far left socialist base. And so when she says, bye millionaires, you don't want to be here, bye, that's not accidental. That was a message to the far left base that says, don't worry, I'm still with you. I still believe the rich are the problem. I still believe the businesses are the enemy. It's not about actually, you know, making people's lives better. It's not about creating jobs, growing the economy, you know, things that actually helps the cities flourish and be more affordable. It's about saying whatever they need to say first to get elected, then to keep the radicals excited. It's about proving that they will fight the evil rich people, even if those same people are the ones funding the city. And what ends up happening is what we tend to see always happen. Taxes are increased on the people who decide to stay in these liberal cities, in these liberal states, while the tax base, the people who actually pay a majority of those taxes, are long gone. But those are my thoughts on the update. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your comment down below. As always, if you enjoyed the content, smash that thumbs up. For more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.